Have you ever wondered what's happening in the prestige market here in Brisbane? Does it move at the same pace as the rest of the market? Well, today we have invited Christine Rudolph from Ray White Collective to help us understand everything we need to know about Brisbane's prestige market.
Welcome to the Brisbane Property Podcast with your hosts Melinda and Scott Jennison.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Brisbane Property Podcast with Scott and Melinda Jennison. And we're very lucky today to have a special guest with us. We've got Christine Rudolph. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you very much, Scott and Melinda.
It's a pleasure to actually invite you onto our podcast today, Christine. And I know we connected recently. You've just started your own podcast, and obviously that's something that we can talk about a little bit later today. But the reason that we have invited Christine onto the podcast today is that we really wanted to take a deep dive into the prestige market here in Brisbane. And there's no other agent that I can think of that can provide that snapshot view as articulately as Christine will be able to do today. So we're really looking forward to hearing your insights to provide our listeners with an update on what's actually happening at the top end.
Thank you. Well, that's a big wrap up. I'm very hopeful to live up to those expectations.
I'm sure you will.
Christine, you're luxury property specialist with Ray White New Farm, which is part of the Collective Group. Now we're all proud parents, and I know a little bit of an inside here that yes. You're very proud of your daughter, who has, I think, consistently been in the top REB Women in Real Estate and owns also now in Sydney, Sotheby's.
That's right. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. So my daughter, Emily, she's just turned over 30. She started with me in real estate when she left school, straight out of All Hallows, deferred school for a year and basically never looked back. At the very tender age of 19, packed her bags, moved to Sydney, knew no one, and through sheer hard work and determination has managed to get to the top of the game in the very competitive eastern suburbs market. So yes, very proud of my daughter.
Yeah, and what a mentor that she has as well. I mean, you know, to have that mentorship from someone like yourself in a motherly role, but also in a mentorship role, I'm sure she's able to excel because of that as well.
Thank you. I'm very passionate about women being in real estate. It's a terrific career. So yes, thank you.
There's a few, and just on it, we'll get into the podcast shortly, but I know that when you talk about women in real estate, there's an International Women's event coming. I know Melinda's booked into these things, and women in real estate from REIQ. So yeah, it is good that it's promoted, and I think women in real estate is very, very important because I look at it from a male side of things, and generally, I think the females have a lot to say when it comes to buying property.
Yeah, Scott, that's really interesting that you say that because, it is definitely something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm actually fortunate to be on a forum for leading ladies in real estate, where we actually really encourage and mentor young women in particular to have this as a career. But it is true, women are big decision makers in real estate. So, it's something we need to be aware of.
Absolutely. Now, Christine, you host the podcast called Grow, where you share inspirational success stories about other women in real estate. Can you share a little bit about your podcast with our audience?
Yeah, so this is just something that sort of started organically about a year ago. I think, there's, I think people like to hear success stories about where people have come from and how they've got there. And I really enjoy sort of telling the stories from people from all different ages and walks of life. So far, it has just been sort of young women on my podcast, which is great. But I think it's great to have a podcast now because people are always searching for how did they do it, what's their story, how can I do it? So that was really my inspiration to launch that podcast.
Wonderful. Well,
today, have you on it now.
Well, I'll look forward to receiving that invitation and we can talk a little bit more about my story. But today it is all about the prestige market here in Brisbane. And of course, based on our understanding of what's happened in the Brisbane market in the last 5 years, we've seen this astronomical growth. It's not different in the prestige market. And in fact, 2025 property outlook report by the Ray White senior data analyst, Atom Go Tian, has actually confirmed that Brisbane's growth in luxury properties in the last 5 years is up 50.5%. What actually defines a luxury property, in your opinion?
Yeah, look, it's a very good question, Melinda. I think prior to the beautiful boom that we're going through in Brisbane, we would have classed that luxury property market to be sort of properties in that, I guess, $3 to $10 million range.
Yeah.
We've really seen a shift now in the median, and the stats are, as you've mentioned, that the prices in the prestige market have gone up by 50% over the past 5 years, in some cases even more. So we're actually seeing that price point, entry level now for the prestige market would really be in that 5 million plus range.
Yep.
That's probably more considered to be, your prestige market. And that's a sector of the market that is, moving extremely well. Really, when you compare Brisbane to the southern states, and we are continuing to see, as I know you and Scott know, a strong migration of Southerners from Melbourne and Sydney, and also the return of a lot of expats as well. I had inquiries over the Christmas break from expats in the US, which was very interesting, wanting to buy back in Australia. And when you compare our prestige market in Brisbane to Sydney and Melbourne, where 20 million in Sydney is not going to buy you a lot, but the new top price for Brisbane is 20 million. We saw our first $20 million sale only, 12 months ago, and yet, or just over 12 months ago. But then in the past year, we've actually seen, more than 4 sales reported in the $20 million plus category, which a lot of people go, wow, 20 million for Brisbane. But when you look at, Sydney and harbourfront properties, selling for, 150 million, some on the market at the moment for 220 million. And then Toorak, we've had sales transacted in Toorak in Melbourne recently for 150 million. Yeah. It still makes Brisbane exceptional buying.
Yeah. And we often talk about, affordability. We're in a different class when we talk about prestige properties because, it's likely that buyers that are looking for these very scarce homes in very scarce locations don't actually rely on borrowed funds necessarily. They're cash buyers, so interest rate fluctuations are less likely to impact their decisions. Would you agree with that, Christine?
You are 100% right. I was having this discussion yesterday actually with a seller, and this seller there is a sector of the market last year which, and we're even seeing it at the moment, a sector of the market that was more affected by the interest rate rises.
Yes. Yep.
And that sector of the market did see buyers take a little bit more caution because they were concerned about the continuing rate rises. And I would say that sector has been properties in that 3 to 5 million price point, which was our old normal for prestige, but now is sort of more your families that are young professionals, the kids are growing, they're wanting to upsize, but they're cautious of, school fees, will the rates keep rising, cost of living and everything. So I was saying to this seller yesterday, they said, well, why are the 5 million plus properties just selling so quickly? And why are they on the market, for not so long? And it is because, exactly as you've said, in that category, those buyers are less dependent on banks and finances and loans.
It's really interesting. And we are talking about very scarce properties where, it's very hard to recreate these sorts of homes. And so when they become available, which is not very often, if the demand is there, if the buyer depth is there, they're going to actually, pay whatever it takes for the scarcity of the opportunity, because the opportunity does not come up very often for these sorts of homes.
Absolutely. And I think, again, this is where a lot of those discerning buyers will then come to you and engage your services, because when you have those beautiful high-end properties, those sort of sellers are not necessarily on the market.
That's right.
You've got to go out and you've got to source those properties.
Yeah.
And because they are so rare and they are so unique, we will see a lot of those sellers they can actually name their price. And, we did see evidence of this last year, and this has been reported in the media, so it's and it is out there. We saw the evidence of Brian White's house, for example. So Sutherland Avenue, Ascot, one of the most sought after streets in Brisbane, continually regarded as, the most prestigious street, because you've got those beautiful, big, grand old homes and those lovely big blocks. So Brian White transacted his home in 2021, when the market was very strong, in original condition, and, sold for over 10 million. The gentleman who bought that home was passionate about restoring that home and intended to stay there forever. But there was one buyer who absolutely wanted that home, and the price just kept going,
Upward.
up and up, and that was purchased off market, and for over double the price of what it transacted for in 2021, renovated. But it just goes to show there is a demand for those quality properties, and those buyers will pay for it. And since then, the market has now moved up to that level, because we can see other properties transacting at that price.
Christine, are you seeing, I know you've talked about areas in Melbourne and Sydney, and obviously Sutherland Avenue. Are there any particular suburbs or locations that we're seeing a lot of demand here in Brisbane?
That's a very good question. I think that if you're talking about a lot of people who wanted that inner city are now sort of looking to the fringe suburbs. So I'm not sure if you've seen this happen, but there's been a huge growth in values in some of the fringe suburbs in the past 12 months. And, this is where I say to a lot of my buyers, just look that one suburb over, because you are going to get tremendous value for money. So a suburb that I actually, two suburbs that I can talk about where I've seen this happen in the last year is Nunda. So, Nunda has had exponential growth in the last 12 months in units and houses. I think one of the agents in our office has really sort of specialized in that area, and he's picked up a lot of units that were held by investors. And now that the market's picking up, those units which were transacting a couple of years ago for early 400s, they're now selling in high sixes, early sevens, which is incredible, because you just cannot buy that stock in New Farm, Ascot, Hamilton, Clayfield for that same price. So buyers are sort of going out, and that's having tremendous benefits for those fringe suburbs, because that's bringing new energy into the suburbs. It's bringing new infrastructure. So yeah, I would say that, inner city always remains high, but then buyers are now searching outwards, as I'm sure you'll find it,
Absolutely.
to look for value.
Absolutely. Christine, I know before we started to talk about recording the podcast together, we had a discussion around the downsizer trend that's occurring here in Brisbane. And we were talking about the fact that a lot of downsizers now are looking for that low maintenance lifestyle, that lock up, set and forget lifestyle, high security lifestyle. And therefore there is this increasing demand for luxury apartments. Can you tell me more about what you've observed in that particular space here in Brisbane?
Yeah, look, it's very, very interesting. I'm having the conversation with a lot of my downsizers at the moment who really regret not selling their property 12 months ago. And it's sort of a bit of a catch-22 situation, because we do have a shortage of houses, as we know. And a lot of those sellers 12 months ago were fearful about selling, because they weren't really sure of where they were going to go. And, as I say, we've never left anyone homeless. There's always options. If you sell, you can sort of rent temporarily until you find the right property. But what has now happened for a lot of those downsizers is that they had a figure in their head that they thought they were going to get for their homes. But in some cases, in some suburbs, we've actually seen apartments go up by 20 to 25%, while their house value has only increased by maybe 9 to 10%. So they're having to pay 10% more. And on a property that 12 months ago may have been like mid twos, you're looking to pay 3 million now for that same property, which is a lot of money. So yeah, the prestige property market for apartments is huge, and we're also finding a lot of those beautiful older style blocks are in high demand. Somewhere where I've sold quite a few properties in the past 12 months is Kangaroo Point. And Kangaroo Point has gone up so much in the last 12 months that it is now the second most expensive place to buy a unit outside the 4005 postcode. And a lot of these buyers have gone, wow, there's no stock available in New Farm. We want to make the move. Oh, Kangaroo Point's looking pretty good. So they're buying a lot of older style apartments. They're actually gutting them and they're spending the money on them because they don't want to have the lead-in time of buying off the plan. And some of these off the plan prices now, if they're waiting on those, they're going to be paying double the amount of money to what it's costing to buy existing stock. So that's actually creating a real bottleneck in the apartment market and driving the apartment market forward.
And a lot of those older units, you'll find they're slightly bigger in design, so the footprint is actually a little bit bigger. We actually had a client recently. I'm due to go over there and visit them. They bought an apartment in Toowong with city views. It was beautiful, and they did the same thing, completely gutted it. New kitchen, the whole lot, and I'm due to go over there and have a look at it, which I can't wait. So that I agree, that's a popular way to do it. Kangaroo Point, as you said, the access through the new bridge to the CBD. There's a lot of pluses to those sort of areas.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think also a lot of the established buildings are on the prime land. And so when we see new developments being constructed, they're typically set back a little more. So unless you're in the more elevated parts of those buildings, you may not have the views that some of the more established properties could provide. So, it's a smart move, I guess, to buy something that is more established and recreate the design internally, providing that you're working within the body corporate scheme and rules, obviously, but it's a really smart strategy, and it's definitely something that we've observed through our clients that we've represented as well. And in fact, we had a lovely client last year who did buy an apartment in Kangaroo Point, and she's also in the process of upgrading that apartment to be to her style and taste. So it's very common, and I agree with you 100% that demand shift to the apartment market, especially in inner city premium locations, has been so strong. And it is a real concern for some of the buyers in the market if they've had to sell in order to purchase, and yet the apartment market has outperformed the housing market by so much just in the last 12 months that changeover cost, if you like, the cost to sell and then repurchase, there's been that opportunity cost, if you'd like to call it, in not selling sooner to get into that apartment market, because the cost here in the apartment space has shifted so much more significantly in that short period of time.
It has. And what I'm now seeing happen there as well is a lot of those buyers are now having to make compromises. So, for example, I've had a lot of downsizers that have recently been coming through larger 2-bedroom apartments because, there can be $1 million differential between a 2 and a 3-bedroom apartment, which is extraordinary. I've just had a situation again in Kangaroo Point where I sold 2 side-by-side apartments, and there was very little difference in the floor size, but one apartment sold for the 3-bed sold for $1 million. over $1 million, $1.2 million more than what the two bed sold for. So people are now going, oh gosh, maybe we'll just settle for a 2-bedroom. So it's very, very interesting to see the changes happening.
It's also similar when, again, if we talk about that, when you compare it to Sydney and Melbourne, you can get an apartment here in Brisbane on the river with views compared to what you would actually pay in Sydney for something like that.
Oh
It's
my
just
God,
chalk and cheese.
it's extraordinary. I mean, I do follow the Sydney market very closely as well, particularly the eastern suburbs. And I mean, but by the same token, some of our apartment prices in Brisbane are starting to be on a par with Sydney.
Yeah.
We have now got evidence, and I've just done a report on this actually. There is a building 443 Queen Street in the city. That building has had some extraordinary results in the past 12 months. It's a brand new building. It's really given the CBD the revival that it wants. But there were 2 sales last year that I have seen of 2-bedroom apartments for $3 million, plus 1-bedroom apartments of 81 square meters have been transacting in that building for around 1.6 million.
Wow, it's a lot of money, isn't it?
So that is extraordinary. That is eastern suburb Sydney prices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christine, who's driving this demand? Like, who are the buyers in the prestige market? We've mentioned there's locals, obviously, who are downsizing, but are you seeing a lot of buyers from interstate or expats from overseas or foreign buyers? Like, who is the dominant buyer group?
Yeah, it is very interesting. There are quite a number of expats who are looking to move back to Brisbane. I don't know if you're finding that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, the expats really are coming to move back to Brisbane, and I think there's a few motivating factors there. A lot of them who've left Brisbane, let's say 30 years ago, they've gone and had very successful careers in the UK or the US or Singapore, Asia. They've got reasons to move back, and a lot of those reasons are they've got elderly parents here. They want to come back to be near mum and dad. They've got kids that are going to go to uni, and they want them to come back and go to UQ or QUT. And they've done really well with their careers over there, and it's time to come back. So they're in a wonderful position where they can afford to go and buy those beautiful properties. And they also don't have the time to be going out there to open homes at the weekend. That's why they're ringing you as a buyer's agent and saying, here's the brief, this is what we want. So I would say, yes, expats are driving it. And then your Sydney and Melbourne buyers, and also Adelaide, actually. It's really interesting. I have had quite a few people from Adelaide last year that are relocating to Brisbane.
Okay.
And yeah, it is. It's driven by, we're still seen as relatively affordable. Plus, we've got all of the jobs that are going on here. The infrastructure and the growth for Brisbane is incredible.
Very promising.
Plenty of confidence in our economy.
Yeah, we actually see through our side of Dubai is actually quite a big area for us as well.
Interesting.
We help clients there, have helped and do help clients from there a bit as well. And that's the same type of thing. Kids coming back, going to university, trying to get a property back here, doing their work over there, and then they're looking to relocate back here in the future as well.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I would definitely say, but they're not the key, the core. They're not. We're not to say that they're driving those prices up.
Of course not. No.
Because a lot of people in that prestige market, there is a lot of quiet and understated wealth in Brisbane. And those buyers are really looking for a beautiful home, and they want something where everything's already done for them. So they're definitely driving the prestige market.
And what about sellers, Christine? Obviously, you talk to sellers to understand their motivation to list properties on the market. We know that in Brisbane we've had a really a severe stock shortage. When we say stock, we mean the number of listings in the last couple of years have been well below our long-term trends. Are you finding that that is similar in the prestige market? And is there a reluctance for owners to sell? And if so, what is that reluctance?
Yes, I think that's a really, really good question, Melinda. And I think, we sort of got to this bottleneck a few years ago where we had a lot of sellers that were wanting to downsize, but then they were worried because they wanted to, find that right property first before they could downsize. And it was, a bit of a catch-22. And then that caused that stock just to come to a standstill. So I think what I'm seeing at the moment, a lot of my clients who are transacting are in a fortunate position where they already have a secondary property and they've got somewhere to go. So they've always had maybe a property at the coast, or they might be, relocating to somewhere else. So if they've got that certainty of another property to go to, they'll go on the market. So I think that that is still, a big thing.
Yeah.
But I guess it's really important to help my sellers. A lot of the work is to help them with certainty of what's the plan next. So they have the confidence to put the property on the market and take the leap of faith and go, because there's no such thing really as a subject to sale. I've got some beautiful downsizing clients at the moment, and
not in the current market.
No, they rang me a couple of weeks ago because they'd missed out on buying a property, and they said, but we were the highest price. And I said, okay, well, let me go through the terms with you. What did you offer and what were the terms? And they said, oh, and we said that we wanted 60 days to sell our property and we were going to put it on the market with you. I said, no one's going to take a subject to sale in the current market, especially for apartments.
Yeah, and it is that very harsh reality for a lot of buyers, just understanding the fact that the competition is high, and so terms do matter. Quite often more so than price, and sellers want that certainty when they are looking to filter through offers that they might actually receive. So obviously that's where a buyer's agent can assist.
That's right, exactly.
Christine, when you talked about for that, for example, they were the highest offer on the property, but their conditions weren't. Are you seeing people pushing a bit harder in that fear of missing out, so they're offering more to try and get into the properties?
Absolutely.
Obviously, the conditions are different, but price-wise, are you seeing that push a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. And that is it depends on, I think where we're seeing really strong traction in the market at the moment. We had our in-room auctions at the weekend, which was a really good barometer for the start of the Brisbane market. And I know you were
We were there.
We were there.
Which was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you saw firsthand the energy and the momentum in the market.
Across all price points, which is what we noted was very obvious. Yeah.
That's right. So more than just, talking about the prestige market, it's across the board at the moment.
It is, yes.
So I brought the stats today of, what happened, and we had almost $10 million worth of properties sold prior. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties sold prior, across all price points. And the prestige market moved at the weekend. That $2 million market is hot at the moment.
It is,
as
yes.
I'm sure you've found.
Yes, sure is.
And then, the lower unit stock, that's just
walking out the door.
Can't get enough of it. Yeah.
I think it was over 70% clearance rates on Saturday.
Yes.
So huge numbers. And that fluctuated from, I think the lowest was about a 570 unit, thereabouts.
Yeah, that's right. I've actually got
and then it went right up from there. So really good sales on that side of it.
That's exactly right. So, Our lowest sale was actually a unit in Nunda, and
yes.
that sold for 680,000. Now,
That's right.
that just
Yep.
goes to show and I beg your pardon, there was a 570 sale in Nunda.
Nunda.
Yep.
Yep.
So 2 sales in Nunda,
For units,
but
yeah.
that's still phenomenal pricing
Yeah.
for
What that
Nunda.
stock is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's exactly right.
So, Christine, in terms of the future outlook, obviously we've talked a little bit about, what's been happening and what's happening right now. Are we seeing a lot of new stock being developed? And if not, what's likely to happen in terms of price in this prestige market here in Brisbane?
I think where the opportunity lies for people at the moment is a lot of people in the prestige market just want to get in there and have everything done for them, and they will pay a premium to have
For
that
that.
done.
Mm-hmm.
I think where the opportunity lies at the moment is if you can pick up a really good property that may not be 100% what you're after and just change the goalpost a little bit. There's a lot of value to be buying into properties that may be good block size, really solid house, really good location,
Yeah.
but not quite 100% what you're after.
Mm.
Because when you have a look at the trajectory for the next 10 years, everything is pointing to continued solid growth
That's
for
right.
Brisbane. So I think that one area that a lot of buyers are starting to shift their attention to is actually looking for properties that may not be perfect now, but they're looking for that 10-year hold.
Yeah.
A lot of people want everything done, going in, looking gorgeous. But I think if you can have the patience to just buy something, do all the cosmetic work to it now and wait until, you get a great builder, construction costs are already starting to level out, which is good.
Yep.
That's where I think that is the spot in the market at the moment that I would be focusing on.
Sweet spot. Yeah. And
definitely.
it's interesting, obviously, Scott, being a licensed builder, these are the opportunities that we can identify for clients because we find that quite often buyers can't see the opportunity.
Totally.
They might know the location and they might fall in love with the location, but they can't see what needs to be done to bring the property, whether it's a single dwelling house or whether it's a luxury apartment, they can't see what needs to be done or how you can actually up-spec the property to be exactly what you're looking for. And obviously that's where an eye for detail and someone with that knowledge in construction can really assist to open your eyes to the opportunity that's right there.
Yeah, there's tremendous value add to those properties. And I think you're 100% right. A lot of buyers will also often come into properties. There are properties you can see that have been sitting there on the market for quite some time. It is the ones that generally do sometimes just take that little bit longer to sell are the ones that might need a little bit of work done for them. But if you can just help those buyers see that there's going to be tremendous capital growth and opportunity in that, I think they're the properties that are absolute gold in the market at the moment.
Absolutely.
We were only talking the other day, Melinda and I. I'll give a client example. We helped some clients buy a property just up the back. I won't give the exact location, but it's walking distance to Howard Smith Wharves. So near Fellons there, and these clients say same thing. They've changed a few things in the unit. They're about to do a full renovation as well. And Melinda even said, she said, I could actually live in something like that in that location, which I probably could too. Not that I'm downsizing just yet, but it's exactly what you're talking about. Buying something that might not have all the bells and whistles right now.
Yeah.
But you're in a perfect location and you can actually change that property to suit the way you want to live in the future as well.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I'm saying to a lot of my downsizers is I'm sort of saying to them now, well, look, you're not quite ready to downsize just yet. So a lot of them come through, they might be 4 years off the process and they're starting to do the looking now. I'm really encouraging them to also secure a property now that may not be 100% it might be the location that they want, might be the views they want. Buy it now, rent it out,
Yeah.
it's only going to continue to go one way. And then when you are ready to sell your family home, you've got something to move into. So that's another opportunity that I'm really encouraging people to consider at the moment as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, if there's capacity to hold those assets, then, that's going to benefit them long term as well, because you are right in saying right now there is only one way that a lot of these properties can go, and that is up, because we're not building enough for the number of people that are relocating to Southeast Queensland through international migration, interstate migration, and natural population increase. And the additional thing that I'll add to that is that we're certainly not building properties in the most premium locations, because they're already fully built out. So it's about getting the location right now, because most of those properties can't be replaced, and it's about updating what is already there.
Melinda, that is an exceptional point, because there's pockets in Brisbane right now that still have plenty of growth in them. And
that's right.
It comes back to those fringe suburbs that we've spoken about. So, it's just ridiculous the way Brisbane works, but sometimes you can have a beautiful property, but it's, I don't want to be on that side of blah, blah, blah road. I don't want to be, I only want to be this side of blah, blah, blah road.
Yeah.
But the differential that you're paying can be
price.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. So a lot of, potential that I see at the moment is, I sold a property to a young couple last year, beautiful property. And they took the risk to buy in an up and coming area because they could see everything around them being transformed. And it's just been announced that land has been released near them, and there will be all these new beautiful homes built. I said to them when they bought it, I said, in 5 years' time, I guarantee all this scrubland that's here, all of this that doesn't look great today, it's going to go, and there's going to be beautiful properties everywhere, and you are going to be sitting here saying, I'm so glad that we took the risk.
Yeah.
And how many times do we see that happen in Brisbane? Suburbs like, Fortitude Valley, no one would have touched that area.
That's right.
It's gone. It's about having the vision to find that next up and coming suburb.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think when people experience, and we always talk about different cities. We were in Sydney a few weeks ago, and just walking through some of those inner city areas, Chippendales, and when you walk through there and you see how it changes and how people want to live in those areas, and then you look at Brisbane, I think we're still so young.
Yes.
But we will change and we will grow, and we will have to change, because we will become more and more like migration's happening. More people are going to want to move to Brisbane. The Olympics are coming. We are going to change.
We are going to change. Very interesting stat. We last year had the biggest boom in apartments since Expo 88.
Yeah.
Can you remember Expo 88?
Yeah.
I do remember Expo
Me
88. My little day pass that I went around to collect all of my stamps.
That's right, which is amazing.
Yes.
The other thing as well, having a vision to look to where the next growth area is in the future. I can give you an example of when I moved up from Sydney in the early 2000s. I was working for Qantas at the time, and I had a friend of mine who worked for Qantas who'd bought a lot of property and had done very well out of property, take me to New Farm, drive me around New Farm and say, you've got to buy a house in New Farm. I was, oh my goodness, I'm not going to buy a house in New Farm. And my daughter brought up in New Farm. And, look at 20 years later,
That's right. Yes.
the results of New Farm, $3 million median price code, the most expensive suburb in Brisbane.
Yeah.
So things, as you say, can change very, very quickly.
Yeah, look, and it's not a surprise to our regular podcast listeners. I've grown up in Brisbane all my life. I've seen the gentrification occur, and I used to say driving in towards the inner city was like driving into where all the old people live. And, respectfully, what's happened over time is gentrification, and, the younger cohort of higher income earning people have moved in, renovated, improved these homes, and it's just driven up the profile of who that demographic is. And along with that, we've become a much more densely populated city. So what's happened as a result is that the desirability of more scarcely located homes has increased, and that demand and supply is what's causing prices to escalate.
Definitely. Yes.
We could probably talk all day here.
Yes.
We love that prestige market. And what you see, as you said, I think there's opportunity there for people to not just buy a prestige property, but buy a prestige location and turn it into something prestige in the future if that's what they desire. Some people can buy it already done and finished, and that's, as you say, that is something that some people do want. I think the downsizers is a big play. What will happen in Brisbane as well, and that lifestyle, people wanting to live in luxurious apartments and units close to the city, close to restaurants, bars, etc., and have that lifestyle. I think that's a big change that we'll see in Brisbane as well.
Definitely. That's definitely where we're heading.
Christine, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I'm sure all of our listeners will agree that you've been able to provide so much value in helping them understand what's actually happening in the prestige market. So if people would like to get in touch, perhaps they are sitting on a property and they'd like to discuss, its value, that it might be a prestige property that they're looking to offload, how do they get in touch?
That's very lovely of you. Thank you, Melinda. Yes, please email me or call me. I'm sure the details will go up here on the
show notes. We'll put the details in.
But yeah, look, I really, my passion for being in real estate is that I got into real estate because I wanted to give the service to my clients of what I was lacking when I was a buyer and a seller. So we're very much aligned with our values, and it's about really helping people and giving them the right advice for what is really one of the biggest decisions of their life. So
very true.
Love to help.
Yeah. So if you're looking to sell property or get an appraisal, reach out to Christine. I'm sure she'll be able to help and give the service that I think we always talk about for our clients, giving them good service. Thank you very much again for joining us. It's been a pleasure to chat. As usual, I will let Melinda wrap it up for the week. Thanks very much for listening. Take care and bye for now.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Brisbane Property Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode where we've really taken a deep dive into the prestige market here in Brisbane. As always, if you've enjoyed this content, please share with family and friends. We would love for you to leave us a review on your favourite podcast player and hit that subscribe button if you're tuning in on YouTube. Until next week, have a great few days and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.